All right, here we are with Randy in Long Island City, USA. And we're hopping on this, we're having a casual chat right now and decided to record because I originally met Randy, what year was it? Was it 2020 for an interview for typography website about pedestrian space. And then since then, among the many things you're doing, you've gone on to now start this newspaper, magazine. We were just actually discussing what to call the format, which of course isn't as important as just the production of it and what you're putting out there. And I was really honored you included me in issue 2, Journey with Purpose. The theme was scorching. You have. It's hard for me to hold them up. Oh, there we
Mhm.
go. Scorching. Yeah, there we are.
Here
I
we
just
are.
love the format. You're using Newspaper Club, which I'm very curious about. I'm a huge print person. I miss having the tactile aspect to right there we are. What you did with me, building the port, building the port to launch ships on Ecolympus pedestrian space. I was so grateful to be included in this really fascinating lineup of articles. We have one here on street EV charging, and then another one that I was really fond of. Trees are critical infrastructure. So you're putting some really incredibly interesting content out there, and I love how digestible it is, but
Thank
also
you.
the depth and I just and you just started it. What issue are you on now? 3 or 4?
Three, working on four right now. So this was so about 2 years ago, I struck out on my own. I was at a IDEO giant consultancy, and then working on my own things, being both sort of like working on projects for client, doing art, working with cities on ways to engage with residents. And one of the things that I realized is that I was missing like a thread in something that I owned myself that wasn't deliverable, was something that I could do myself. And I also luckily don't haven't had to do any marketing. Everything was word of mouth and friends of friends and things like that, which is amazing as a small business owner. Has been great. And so this year was the second full year of me doing this experiment called Expedition Works, my company. And I thought, well, what is my version of marketing? Like I don't really golf, and um, it felt like buying ads on Instagram or Facebook felt like I was like just lighting money on fire. And so one of the things that I thought is like, well, can I have a vehicle where I get to talk with cool people and I put something out in the world? And that's where Journey with Purpose is. Like, so expeditions are just journeys with purpose somewhere, hopefully somewhere successful. And so we have 3 copies right now, 3 issues out right now, and it's a prototype in how to tell stories. The first one was about starting. The second one was about our changing Earth, and the third one that just came out a couple weeks ago is ostensibly about homecoming. And so um, there it's both a kind of a heavy lift mentally to put it together, but also what's cool about Newspaper Club is um, you just have an InDesign template, or I think they now have Canva templates, and it's pretty easy just to put it together and send it to them, and their customer service is awesome, and they run it and then they deliver it in boxes. And so um, it's been a really interesting experiment, and also of how fulfillment of physical goods is done. Trying like I sent you a giant box full of issues is somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean right now. And even just like dealing with that, you start intersecting with customs and different post offices, all to get like something physical together. And you just remind us why how amazing stuff like Zoom and the internet is. to talk with each other. And so I think this is one of those experiments where it's interesting as trying to keep that red thread of like, okay, what is this issue all about? So right now I'm putting together an issue around like transportation and subways. And so interviewed this really amazing person who she went and did this like study of the different paint chip layers on the New York City subway columns, and basically took and whittled down and saved paint chips from the columns. And then also there's this really great architect locally here in New York, and she's creating these beautiful isometric 3D drawings of the really complex New York City subway. And so part of this is mixing some polemics, like in Homecoming. I look back at my childhood and think about like, how do we create a town center in this like 1950s Leave It to Beaver suburb that I grew up with, and I loved growing up there. Like it did me well, but it was very hard to go buy anything. There's no corner stores there. To also, talk with this instructor, DJ Trishler, who teaches at my alma mater at Cincinnati, his thesis was about visual design for community, and how maybe that's, and how fraught that is with, what is a design for the community is. And so it's been like one of those things that it fills the white space between project work and business development and talking with people, but it's also giving me something to sort of hang a hat on and to make me keep like producing.
Yeah, it's extremely interesting. I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan. And also I'm curious in this era making, I mean, I think I get it just because of how much I love print, and I see this and it makes me want to create. And I'm familiar with Newspaper Club, your zine magazine, whatever we're going to call it. It's the first newspaper club product I've held, but I've looked at them and I've wanted to use them. So I've been curious about your process. But what was like what led to this also print versus just another website?
So just another website, it felt a little bit like, if I'm doing all this work, I kind of want to touch it, feel it, and smell it. You can smell the ink in the paper. The downside is that there's like a whole stack of copies underneath my desk right now that my family wants me to get out of the house. And so please buy copies. I'll sell it to you in bulk. But that's the other thing is like trying to there's something in this age of like effortless communication. There does feel like a moment of like, can we put something together, put it, like, you have to put it on paper and actually press it out, adds a little bit more specialness to it. I think like I'm inspired. There's this New York based artist, Tom Sachs. You've probably seen him. He does one of his works is he created what is it called, a space mission, where he basically creates bricolage. NASA, he has his own NASA, he has his own lunar lander that actually like sits down and self-supporting, and he does all this. It's kind of this alternate reality of where he sends people to Mars, and he's doing one of his things right now is called Tom Sachs Rocket Club, where he's launching rockets, but each rocket has an NFT. And now there's like, they brought moon rocks back and you can buy those. And then now he's printing posters that have NFTs. So like this merge between like the digital and physical, I get really excited about, because like in the end, like NFTs, I'm not really excited about in general, because it just feels like I can't touch it or feel it. But when we start to play with space and physicality in the digital world, that starts to that sort of that bending of space and time gets me super interested. And so this is like a forcing mechanism to keep talking with people so that I can keep putting things out in the world, because it's really easy for me personally just to like get deep into project work. And what sustains me is both the project work, but also having excuses to talk with other people.
Yeah, well, I understand that. I understand that need very much. And again, I crave print. I'm a person that needs to. If you saw my desk right now, it's nuts. Like there's paper everywhere. And of course, my digital life is nuts as well. And I'm creating digitally constantly. But that's funny because I can't read at length online. Like
Yeah.
your zine online for me would be like challenging to sit through and read at length. But in my hand, I can digest the whole thing in a sitting. But online, it's just more difficult for me. I don't know if that's attention span or just some people can read online. Some people are reading entire novels. For me, it's challenging. I need things. I'm not marking up your magazines, but the physicality and I notice it often on public transit too when people are actually reading actual books. When I read books, I need to be able to underline, highlight. It's just part of my process. I don't know if it's a generational thing or um, just a preference that we're moving further away from with digital. But I think even so, I think if we were to look at younger generations and give them the option, I think a lot of them would enjoy having that physicality too. Because it's a different experience. It's a completely different
Yeah.
reading experience.
I I think it's like, for me it's super contextual because um on my iPad I probably have similar copies of the same books that I have out and about. So like I have a digital copy of Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy. I also have the books. And for me it's like it if I'm going, when I used to fly a lot, I I would just load up on books or podcasts and do that. Now it's a little bit where I can sort of like um, grab a book and sort of read it a little bit and put it down. Like I just got Arbitrary Lines by M. Nolan Gray. This is an interesting book about how zoning broke the American city. And so this I can kind of go to because I have two kids. I don't have like the block of time I used to have to like sit down and just like really get into it. But it's like, okay, I can sort of bring it off in between. Like before you and I got on this call, I read a couple pages and um was able to put it down. And you're right. I think if I'm touching a digital piece of glass on my iPad, it the for me there's way more temptation on the iPad to be like, okay, what's happening on Discord, or like what's happening on Slack, or things like that, where um I being being focused is tough these days. And um I think that's like a positive part of something like this.
I'm sure there are studies being done, but the public transit is my reading time. And
Yeah.
I'll move through. I mean, I'll move through a solid chunk of a book that digitally I probably wouldn't make it because I'd be like very distracted. But your family might not be happy with me saying this, but I think you should hang on to those. I mean, of course, if people want to order in bulk, that's great. But I think I can imagine. I mean, imagine potentials in the future when you're involved in a community project and then have examples of your work. I mean, I find it fascinating to see what people are doing with Newspaper Club too, and
Yeah.
and how people are using these newspapers in different ways. And one thing I got excited about thinking is, oh, if I'm involved maybe in a community project in the future, you can use this format to share about the project results or the process,
Yep.
you know. You can, for participatory planning processes or community planning, using it to share about a project. There's just so many potentials. So I say hang on to your copies, but I'm a bit of a paper nut, so don't let your family hear me say that.
No, yeah, I think it's an interesting thing too, because I think that I'm always interested in like how do we use the right tools or the right formats. Like got interested in screen printing and risograph. Luckily, like I don't have room for those stuffs in my work area, or I buy them. So like risograph is this old duplicator that it's kind of like a screen print in like a Xerox copy format, and it has all this like just like screen printing. It's imperfect, much like this, and so the there's one of the things I also was interested in using Newspaper Club for a long time, and this just felt like a good excuse to try it out. I think what's interesting about this too is um, because like this is this hybrid thing for me. Like part of it is like telling a stories, part of it is marketing, part of it is just an excuse to meet cool people, or a way to like hang a hat on something that um like trying to understand what the value of a subscription is versus a one-off, and really like it is this prototype of product market fit, not to be like too like consultancy or business schooly, but trying to understand like what is the price and value of something like this when it takes time, and also people have not a lot of time in their lives to read these things. And so it's been it's been an interesting just exploration in that, and trying to both put out what like I believe is interesting, but also try to get feedback from subscribers and people who are buying the issues to create a little bit of a two-way street, um, that that for upcoming issues. A good example is this is I'm starting a like I did a call for proposals, really focusing on people who don't look like me, who really focus on LGBTQIA plus community, people of color, women, non-binary, to have their experiences with the city. And so part of me is with this experiment is sort of like cleaving off tiny little bit of of time and money to go pay people to write, and so that they are compensated for their words, but also it it it's just not my voice or people like me or people in my social network. And so that to me is again this is an excuse to prototype new ways of engaging with the community.
That's super interesting. I feel like various university departments would be also interesting in what you're doing. I mean, it's so much focused on the city, so I automatically think of like city planning departments and community planning departments, and how rich and interesting this is also as a project, and a mission and a vision and a physical thing for places like that, who I can imagine maybe would be interested in subscribing to as institutes, you know. I think I told you before when you sent me these, the day I got them, I got the mail and I was heading out and I was going to Volsky Centrum Kultury, which I was at today actually, for a future workshop planning, and I was showing them I was at their urban lab. They're a big cultural center in another district, and you had sent me a few, so I left one with them, and they were just absolutely tickled because they have a section in their cultural center with various magazines that have to do with urbanism and art and music. and for them this was like, I mean, it's like maybe the first one they had from New York City. It was super exciting for them. Yeah, it's like they were like joking, they're like, oh, we're international now. So I think places like that, it's it this your paper makes complete sense, and I can see a lot of people perking up when they see it, like, ooh, what's that all about? So I hope paper finds a home in many places.
Yeah, me too. So it gets out of my home into other people's home. That's the
Yeah.
other thing is like trying to go back with like product market fit is trying to like find that right line between recouping the investment and also just like if it's just sitting around, no one's going to read it. Like I would rather, it get out to people. And so if people want to go on jwp.news and take a look at it, we'll give you a free shipping thing. Mostly to the US is easy. Anywhere else it gets really kind of hard, which is it's so tough to like get it even to the UK from here. And there's like an infinite amount of flights and ships, but it is, you get really quickly get thrown back into the physical world of like height, weight, length, and weight. And you understand how hard it is to put things together and to ship product, physical product, and how
Mhm.
just devastating um, all that logistics is to small businesses and to business in general. It's really,
Mhm.
really tough to manage.
I don't know if media I don't know if media mail got more difficult, but there used to be a thing called media mail. And I remember moving around all the time. I had like my one box of books that I was always, I might have been just domestically in the US, but I believe I sent from Europe. But I know, is media mail still a thing domestically in the US?
I think it's a thing, but there's like it's pretty strict in terms of the size, weight, and what it's for.
Okay.
Um, that's the other thing. Like I love the postal service. Like I stand with the postal service because it knits America together, and
Yeah.
it's as important as a institution. Like my
Yeah.
grandmother-in-law was a postmaster in a rural part of Ohio, and so it's really really important institution. But
Mhm.
it also like any ossified organization that doesn't have a lot of competition, but also has a lot of weird oversight. It's very difficult to understand like how to get things paid or like what things cost. And so it could use a refresh.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I'm with you. Yeah, I really here across Europe there's it's different in different countries, but I've seen over my lifetime, um, for example, we were last in Sweden, and I've seen a lot of, it might be privatization of postal,
Yeah.
and I just love the post office. Um,
Yeah.
we're in Poland now. I love going to the post office. They've got all sorts of interesting knickknacks, but I love the actual act of going. Of course, not crazy like holiday weeks, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very important institution. So for people who are interested, you mentioned jwp.news. I'll put this in the
Yep.
caption.
JWP.news.
Also Expedition Works.
Yeah.
Ex
Expedition Works
yeah.
is my company. One of the things I'm super interested in is, ostensibly a lot of times I can do projects that's me plus maybe one other person part-time, but I've been really excited to try and prototype the last year and a half, something more akin to like a TV or movie production house where you bring the best people together on a project, and there's producers, talent, things like that, and you work on a project and then you come out. So there's been a couple prototypes and experiments on doing that and collaborating. So those sort of things where um we find sort of the so much times we're sort of stuck on structure, like are you a W-2 employee, or are you a freelancer, that the imagination part it's hard to like that takes time away. So that's one of the things that I've been really looking to explore. How do you create like a collaborative or people coming together and get paid for it? We haven't at least in America, we haven't abolished capitalism yet. And so um, how do you get paid for honest labor? It's still a thing that we have to solve for. And I think it's an interesting design problem. And so a lot of things I've been doing the last 2 years is try to set up structures that makes it easier to flex people in and out of projects and work.
Well, that's super interesting. And I don't know if this is too basic, but in my mind, like if I were in a neighborhood and working on a project with you, I'd say, well, maybe you can help us understand how to create one of these papers out of our project, to share with the community. So I feel like it's yet another skill in your toolbox, this newspaper creation. And I don't know how you feel about that. You might say it's not really that hard, and I'm sure it's not that hard, but it's time spent, it is labor. And you're becoming better at it, I'm assuming, with every single issue.
Yeah, the first one's hard. There's a lot of for a while there was a lot of me like taking screenshots on Instagram of like, oh, that's really cool. Oh, that looks cool. Trying to understand like both what it should look like and what it should feel like. And then at a certain point I said, I just need to prototype it and just put it out there. And so I got the template down, and luckily again Newspaper Club is great in that they have set up templates and things like that. And in the beginning my suggestion is just like keep it simple and just try to get to print as quickly as possible and get it in front of people for feedback. And then just I think the hardest part honestly is the getting the confirmation that people are reading it so that it gives you like that power up to keep going. Because in at a heart like that, the dopamine hit of like, oh, somebody wants it or somebody bought a subscription, it's amazing, but the half-life of that can feel pretty short. And so part of it is just I have a list on my wall of like the subscribers, and I'm constantly be like, okay, this person they subscribed and they said that they want 6 months of this. I like how am I delivering it for them? And that is that engine can feel kind of down sometimes, but also can you get excited. The rush of it coming and being able to send it out is exciting.
Oh, I can only imagine. And again, don't get rid of all your copies. I'd be happy for you if somebody orders all of them, but maybe there's a chance in the future that people are hiring you also to learn how to do this. And
I'm definitely in a yes and situation.
Yeah.
Like I think I've been incredibly privileged the last 2 years on my own to be able to sort of weave a world where I get to work on cool things and I get to help take care of my family, my two kids, and that sort of flexibility has been amazing. And so I'm always looking for like this year and next year, the business and design goals are trying to figure out how to continue to collaborate with people. And if that looks like a bunch more smaller projects that can fill in times, that like, yes, let's figure it out. Because I think everybody's got a story to tell, and everybody has a journey that they're going on, and let's tell that story.
Yeah, so you want to hold it up again? I will be putting in the caption when I post this, the link, JWP News, if you're interested in cities, if you're interested in urbanism, issues of planning, the built environment, storytelling. I can't recommend this enough. and I'm very inspired by you. You've sparked my imagination, and also you've warmed my heart, my love
Thank
of
you.
print. So, yes,
Thank you.
thank
Thank you for
you.
your words, because I think I appreciate it, because again, like, you know, a lot of times I'm doing this at night after the kids go to bed, and
Mhm.
that becomes like fuel to say like, yes, let's keep going, and
Mhm.
let's put something out in the world, because it's tough. World's tough these days for everyone, and so I appreciate your words.
Yeah, there's something. And I'm sure there's tons of media about this, but maybe it's an idea for something to make, or a future conversation for us to have,
Yeah,
or a panel talk. But the kind of the magic of print these days too. There's something about it, and then receiving
there
that
is.
in the mail and opening it up and taking it with you and having a moment somewhere with that physical thing. It's very special, I think. And also, I believe this is a whole nother story we can talk about maybe later, but I think they're recycled. They're using recycled newspaper club, correct? I
Yeah,
believe.
I believe it's FSC certified. I think it's recycled, but all of
Mhm.
this is recyclable,
Right,
which is
it's
awesome.
recyclable. Right.
Yeah.
It could be great for collaging.
Yep.
For that's a whole nother idea too. There's I it's I think it could be painful to imagine cutting it up, but it could be really cool for using a few for some collaging projects. I think that's really exciting. To me, collaging is precious too. Again, I'm a print nut, so
I
um
mean, I did this art project last year at MoMA PS1, where I made a bunch of stickers of buildings, and this is in the first issue called Block Builder. And I keep thinking about, could I do one or two pages where you could like cut out almost paper craft
ooh,
one of these,
that's a
and
super cool idea.
and do that. And so that maybe I'll try that next. Again, like, that's what's interesting about this format. And like, I'm the publisher. Like,
Right.
why don't I try? Like,
Yeah,
why not?
that's a super neat idea, something interactive. And yeah, there's something we have to have a whole nother talk about that. There is something actually I find cathartic about collaging.
Yep.
Something I'm a very high wired person, and I've had moments before where not even the walking calms it down, but I sit, get out some magazines that I am able to part with, and I start cutting, and it's just like whoosh.
Yeah.
There's something very special about, and it's super interesting too, what you could do with collaging as collective work or just
Yeah.
individual process.
It makes me think there should be a whole episode, a whole issue of just like city typologies. Because
Mhm.
that's another side project I have. Like, here's a mail collection, all the different
Oh
type of
yeah, right.
post office things, different typologies of the city, and have people like make their own like cityscape.
Mhm.
Um, 5G towers
Mhm.
here in New York and elsewhere. Um, I think like, because there's no rules, only like my fancy and suggestions like this, that's where like this sort of thing gets me excited, because it
Mhm.
ends up being, again, collaboration on a different scale that
Mhm.
might not be bags of money, but it's like another way of being creative.
Yeah, there's something deeply satisfying about it. I'm not doing it, but I can sense that, and I understand that it's, and that is extremely important. All the time, but these days in particular, but all the time, it's deeply satisfying work. So thank you for sharing a bit about
Yeah.
it, and I look forward to reading more.
Yeah, and everyone go to jwp.news, and if you're in the States, use free shipping on your free shipping code. And if you live somewhere outside the US, just email me and we'll figure something out.
So thank you.
Thank you. Be well.